Hello and welcome to Indus News live from Islamabad. I'm Jawad Tehami and these are the headlines. Pakistan has summoned a senior Indian diplomat to register protest over ceasefire violations along the line of control. In a statement, the Foreign Office said 11 civilians were wounded in unprovoked Indian shelling in Azad Jammu and Kashmir. It said the Indian forces are continuously targeting civilian population with heavy weapons along the LOC and the working boundary. Pakistan has announced to close all educational institutions for 1.5 months amid second wave of COVID-19. The country has registered over 2,700 new cases and 34 deaths overnight, taking the toll to nearly 7,700. In the UK, ASTRAZENECA and Oxford University say their vaccine for the novel coronavirus can be around 90% effective. Top officials in the US, Germany and the UK say they could start COVID-19 vaccinations as early as December. India has recorded over 44,000 new cases, taking its total to 9.14 million, while the death toll rose by 511 to nearly 134,000. Globally, the virus has claimed over 1.38 million lives and infected over 58.5 million people so far. The US has formally withdrawn from the Open Skies Treaty after accusing Russia of non-compliance with the pact. In a tweet, US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo says the move has made America more secure. The treaty, signed in 1992, allows the 34 participating nations to observe one another's militaries through unarmed flyovers. Gunmen killed 5 worshippers and kidnapped 40 others in an attack on a mosque in Nigeria's northwestern Zamfara state. Police and security forces have been dispatched to the region to rescue the abductees. Meanwhile, 9 people have reportedly been killed when Boko Haram militants targeted a convoy of Borno State's governor. And in tennis, Russian Daniil Medvedev beats Austria's Dominic Thiem to claim the ATP Finals title. Medvedev stormed back from a set down to win the biggest title of his career after defeating Thiem 4-6, 7-6 and 6-4. Those were the headlines and detailed stories right after a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back, and now with the news in detail. Pakistan has summoned a senior Indian diplomat to register protest over ceasefire violations along the line of control. In a statement, the Foreign Office said 11 civilians were wounded in unprovoked Indian shelling in Azad Jammu and Kashmir. It said the Indian forces are continuously targeting civilian population with heavy weapons along the LOC and the working boundary. The statement condemned the deplorable targeting of innocent civilians by the Indian occupation forces. It said such senseless acts are in clear violation of the 2003 ceasefire understanding and international law. India has so far committed 2,820 ceasefire violations, killing 26 and wounding 246 innocent people in 2020 alone. Pakistan has announced to close all educational institutions for 1.5 months amid a second wave of COVID-19. At a news conference, Education Minister Shafqat Mahmood said institutions will remain closed from November the 26th to January the 10th. The minister said children's health and safety is the topmost priority of the government. 34 people have lost their lives to COVID-19 over the past 24 hours, raising the death toll to 7,696. The Health Ministry said 2,756 people tested positive for the disease overnight. The ministry added there are more than 38,000 active COVID-19 cases in the country. It said out of over 376,000 countrywide cases, more than 330,000 have recovered so far. ASTRAZENECA says its vaccine for the novel coronavirus can be around 90% effective without any serious side effects. Director of the Oxford Vaccine Trial, Professor Andrew Pollard, said findings show the effectiveness of vaccines will save many lives. In a tweet, British Prime Minister Boris Johnson termed the news incredibly exciting, but he said there are further safety checks still to be done. In an interview, Health Secretary Matt Hancock said the UK has placed orders for 100 million doses with rollout in the new year. He said the medical regulators will carefully check the vaccine before its availability at the public level. Top officials in the US, Germany and the UK say they could start COVID-19 vaccinations as early as December. Globally, the virus has claimed over 1.38 million lives and infected over 58.5 million people so far. More in this report.
While the second wave of COVID-19 rages on, the world is finally gearing up to combat the pandemic with the first batch of vaccines. Alarm bells are ringing in Europe after the WHO warned of a severe third wave in the region in early 2021. With cases soaring, the UK, France, Spain and Italy have decided to go for mass administration of vaccine as early as next month.
At its essence, our proposal consists in the following. 1. Making a reality the commitment to remove sums of debt and debt servicing to the poor nations of the world. 2. Guarantee that middle-income countries can access credit at interest rates equivalent to the current ones in developed countries.
Hospitals in the US are overwhelmed after over 3 million people tested positive in the current month alone. The country's coronavirus infections have surged to over 12.2 million with nearly 257,000 deaths. Deaths in Latin America continue to rise, with the recent surge in Mexico among the worst in the region. President Andrés Obrador says the economic devastation by COVID-19 to developing countries required global consideration with concrete steps.
I inform you that our country will be, together with Germany, the first country in the European Union to have a complete vaccination plan against COVID-19.
Over in Asia, India has recorded over 44,000 new cases, taking its total to 9.14 million, while the death toll rose by 511 to nearly 134,000. China continues to witness new imported cases while keeping a tight lid on community spread. Meanwhile, in South Korea, the military has reported its highest daily COVID-19 cases over cluster infection at a border unit.
The US has formally withdrawn from the Open Skies Treaty after accusing Russia of non-compliance with the pact. In a tweet, US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo says the move has made America more secure. Taking aim at Russia, Pompeo accused it of blocking surveillance flights as well as denying flights of military exercises. But Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov says despite the withdrawal, US bases in Europe will not be exempted from the Russian surveillance. In May, President-elect Joe Biden ridiculed Trump's decision to withdraw, saying the U.S. benefits from the agreement. The treaty, signed in 1992, allows the 34 participating nations to observe one another's militaries through unarmed flyovers. In the United States, President-elect Joe Biden is pushing ahead to forge his administration despite President Donald Trump's refusal to concede. In an interview, Biden's incoming White House Chief of Staff Ron Klain says the first cabinet pick will be announced tomorrow. Klain called on Trump to allow for a smooth transition of the government without causing delay. He accused the president of rejecting democracy since the election outcome. Meanwhile, President Trump's campaign has filed an appeal against a court decision that paved way for Biden's win in Pennsylvania. District Judge Matthew Bryan had dismissed Trump's lawsuit, quashing his hopes for Pennsylvania. Trump's legal team has suffered repeated blows with failures in Pennsylvania, Georgia, Michigan, and Arizona. Gunmen killed 5 worshippers and kidnapped 40 others in an attack on a mosque in Nigeria's northwestern Zamfara state. Police and security forces have been dispatched to the region to rescue the abductees, including the mosque imam. Meanwhile, 9 people have reportedly been killed when Boko Haram militants targeted a convoy of Borno State's governor. Local media says 7 soldiers and 2 civilians were among the dead. Governor Babagana Zulum escaped unhurt. It was the 3rd Boko Haram attack on the governor in the last 3 months. The United Nations has urged Ethiopia to ensure the protection of civilians in its potential attack on Tigray's capital, Mekelle. This comes a day after Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed gave Tigrayan forces 72 hours to surrender. In a statement, the UN Humanitarian Coordinator for Ethiopia, Catherine Sozi, says she hopes for the guarantee of safety of the aid workers and the protection of over 500,000 civilians in Mekelle. The government's emergency task force says its forces have shown great care to protect civilians during the operations. More than 30,000 refugees have entered neighboring Sudan, while hundreds of people have been killed in fighting that erupted on November the 4th. The second round of Libyan Political Dialogue Forum will commence today via a virtual platform. The UN support mission in Libya's acting head, Stephanie Williams, will chair the meeting. During the meeting, Government of National Accord and Khalifa Haftar's Libyan National Army will discuss ways to implement the agreed ceasefire and set up an interim government before the December 24 elections. The spokesman for the Libyan army, Brigadier Ibrahim Beth al-Mal, has expressed concerns over the dialogue process. He accused the Libyan National Army of attempting to sabotage the ceasefire agreed in October. Al-Mal said Haftar's militia still has presence in Sirte, which violates the agreement. Yemen's Houthis claim to have hit a distribution station of Saudi Aramco oil company in Jeddah with a missile. Spokesman Yahya Sarai said Quds-2 type winged missile was used in the attack. He added the attack is a response to the continuation of the coalition forces' aggression against the group. Saudi Arabia has not yet confirmed the rebels' claim. At the G20 summit, leaders of the world's leading economies have committed to address financial needs of the vaccine rollout to combat the coronavirus. They pledge to lead the world to a sustainable, balanced and inclusive post-COVID-19 era. More in this report.
The pandemic and prospects of an uneven economic recovery have been at the center of the two-day virtual summit hosted by Riyadh. In a closing statement, the leaders vowed to support the research, manufacturing and distribution of safe and effective COVID-19 vaccines. They highlighted the importance of a multilateral trading system amid the pandemic and pledged to keep markets open to achieve a stable trade and investment environment. In his closing remarks, Saudi King Salman bin Abdulaziz Al Saud says the group has agreed on some significant policies.
We have adopted important policies that will achieve recovery all the way to an economy that is resilient, sustainable, inclusive, and balanced. These policies will also maintain the momentum to make the global trade system work for all and create the conditions to achieve sustainable growth.
Meanwhile, the IMF called on making vaccines accessible for all and urged countries not to withdraw support for economies prematurely. The monetary body highlighted the need for an effective framework to help the poorest countries reach permanent debt relief. G20 nations have contributed more than $21 billion to combat the pandemic, which has infected over 58 million and left 1.3 million dead. But the group faces pressure to help stave off credit defaults among developing nations as their debt soars amid an economy battered by the virus.
It's time for a short break. We'll be back with more stories. Stay tuned. Welcome back. The U.S. has provided $18 million worth of precision-guided missile and other weapon systems to the Philippines. Manila's Foreign Affairs Secretary received the precision-guided munitions from the U.S. National Security Advisor Robert O'Brien in the capital. Talking to media, Foreign Secretary Teodoro Locsin said the weapons will be used in the country's fight against terrorism. He said the donation was a fulfillment of the U.S. promise. O'Brien said the transfer underscored Washington's commitment to the critical alliance. He expressed hope that the weapons will help Philippines to counter terrorism threats in Mindanao.
This transfer underscores our strong and enduring commitment to a critical alliance. We hope these precision-guided missiles and munitions will help the AFP protect Philippine lives in Mindanao and end the needless suffering imposed by ISIS East Asia.
China says it will give a legitimate response to the reported visit of the U.S. Navy Admiral to Taiwan. In a news briefing, Foreign Office spokesman said Beijing resolutely opposes any form of exchanges between the U.S. and Taiwan. Zhao Lijian called on the U.S. to fully recognize the sensitivity of the Taiwan issue. He said Beijing has already lodged stern representations with the U.S. over Taiwan. Neither Washington nor Taipei have confirmed the visit of the Navy official overseeing U.S. military intelligence in Asia-Pacific region. 8 people have been shot in a massacre on a coffee plantation in Colombia's department of Antioquia. Authorities say the incident of the shooting is linked to drug trafficking. Betania City's Mayor Carlos Velada said disputes over markets for illicit substances have caused the massacre. He added the massacre occurred when assailants opened fire on 14 people at the La Gabriela coffee plantation.
It appears that the disputes over market for illicit substances in our community was what caused the massacre yesterday, Saturday night in Betania. 10 heavily armed men arrived at the La Gabriela plantation in Vereda La Julia and indiscriminately shot at 14 people.
Belarus has decided to blacklist a number of senior officials from the European Union and European nations. In an interview, Foreign Minister Vladimir Mackay said if the EU imposes sanctions on Belarus, Minsk will have to respond adequately. Mackay said Belarus will expand its sanctions list in retaliation for EU-imposed sanctions on 15 officials. He said Minsk will speak with Western nations about the economic sanctions because it will pose a big threat to Belarus's statehood in general. Meanwhile, more than 200 people have been arrested in Minsk during the latest anti-government protest. Police used stun grenades to disperse crowds who are demanding President Alexander Lukashenko's resignation. They accuse the president of electoral fraud, but he denies any wrongdoing. A sea of rolling clouds cascaded down the face of Lushan Mountain in East China's Jiangxi province. They offered a stunning scene which mesmerized visitors and photography enthusiasts. More in this report.
The flowing clouds in China's Lushan Mountain pervaded the valleys and enveloped ridges, streaming down to the forest and red roof houses below, creating an amazing cloud waterfall landscape. In a number of scenic spots, layer upon layer of clouds stretched for miles, drawing shutterbugs, both professional and amateur. No one wants to miss out on the opportunity to capture this beautiful moment.
The sea of clouds, snowscape, and the yellow leaves in the golden autumn all make photography enjoyable here. Plus, breathing in the fresh air is also really great.
Visitors say the scene one captures is the lens is quite different from the one you see with your own eyes. They describe the view as beautiful as a fairyland. The Lushan Mountain, famous for its mighty peaks, roaring waterfalls, and mysterious cloud mists, was listed as a World Heritage Site by UNESCO in 1996.
In Thailand, a British pianist plays for hundreds of monkeys at a historic site. More about this unique concert in this report.
On his tour in central Thailand, a British musician, Paul Barton, was mobbed by unruly audiences who tugged his hair, stole his music, and climbed all over his piano. While Thailand's COVID-induced hiatus draws in very few visitors to feed hundreds of hungry wild monkeys, the Barton has become their rock star.
I like to play piano for animals that have had stressful lives, and it's possible that music can play a part in the rehabilitation process, especially elephants that have had working elephants. And I was wondering whether some of the monkeys that lived in Lopburi would also appreciate listening to soothing, calm classical music in the way that elephants have done in the past.
After elephants, the musician's latest audience, macaques, were instantly drawn to Barton's rendition of Greensleeves, Beethoven's Für Elise, and Michael Nyman's Diary of Love.
Come together and not let the pandemic stop the macaques getting good, nutritious food. That we need to make an effort to make sure that they eat properly. And when they eat properly, they'll be calmer and not so aggressive towards the humans that live around this area.
The musician hopes to raise awareness of the monkeys' hunger while studying their behavioral responses to classical music.
And proving that people are stronger than machines, athletes from all over Russia took part in a competition in Crimea's Sevastopol. More about this men versus machines contest in this report.
Living in a time when almost all of our daily lives and work depend on some kind of machines, men in Russia are determined to prove themselves stronger. A weight-carrying contest was held in Crimea to demonstrate athlete strength. To win, each man had to lift a car weighing 405 kilograms and carry it as far as they could. Next, they had to pull a truck, its gear in neutral, to a distance of 20 meters using a thick rope. And finally, they had to carry a giant rubber tire weighing 100 kilograms back to the start line.
I haven't stopped training for even a single day. For me, powerlifting is not just a way of life, it's my life. So I can't miss a training session. Competitions are an indicator of all the results achieved. So now I work at my best.
22 years old Dmitry Skosersky from Omsk won the top prize. This year's contest was held without any cheering spectators as COVID-19 restrictions prevented gatherings of crowd.
The lack of spectators has a rather negative effect because I and many athletes are accustomed, like real gladiators, to show our best results with the emotions for the public. This is an energy boost. On the other hand, I see certain advantages in this, because as I said earlier, we must adapt to the conditions in which we perform.
Crimea recorded 57 new coronavirus infections, bringing the total to 3,867 active cases of infection.
European stocks have inched higher as hopes rise that effective coronavirus vaccine will start to roll out soon. European stock 600 has edged over 0.5% up, with oil and gas stocks bouncing over 2%. London's FTSE 100 has gained marginally, while Italy's FTSE MIB has added over 1%. Frankfurt's DAX has also gained over 1%. The CAC 40 in Paris has also risen close to 1%. Early Asian bourses traded mixed, with Japanese, Hong Kong bourses shedding, while mainland Chinese, Australian, South Korean stocks gained. In tennis, Russian Daniil Medvedev beats Dominic Thiem to claim the ATP Finals title. Medvedev stormed back from a set down to win the biggest title of his career after defeating Thiem 4-6, 7-6 and 6-4.
The 24-year-old Daniil Medvedev has become only the fourth player in ATP history to beat the world's top three at the same tournament. Thiem looked on course to become the first Austrian to win the title, but Medvedev turned the tide in superb fashion. The Russian threw away a 40-0 lead on serve at 2-2, gifting Thiem the first set with a double fall. He saved 2 break points, pushing it into a tie break, reeling off 7 points in a row to claim the second set.
4-6, 7-6, 6-4.
Medvedev secured the break of serve in the fourth game of the final set and sealed his victory with a blistering pace.
One of my best victories. 2 hours 42, 3 sets against amazing player Dominic. Congrats already for what you achieved in your career. You are playing unbelievable. I hope we're going to have many more matches to come on the big occasions like this.
Medvedev has also become the 5th successive first-time winner of the title.
In Brazil, Maxime Chabelos receives perfect marks for one of his tricks as he wins SUPERKITE Brazil 2020.
World's top kite surfers took part in SUPERKITE, which is a freestyle international event held at Ilha de Guajiro in Brazil. After 5 days of competition, the men's event went to Switzerland's Maxime Chabelos. Chabelos gained a perfect 10 score for a backmop 7, with grab helping him to a total of 36.73. Eric Anderson of Brazil took second with 34.33, and compatriot Manuel Soares was third with 30.43. The women's event went to world champion Michele Sol of Brazil with a score of 36.17 points. Spain's Rita Arenas took second with 30.96, while Pippa Wan was at third place with 24.87.
And now the weather situation from around the world. And that's all for now. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at Indus.News.